Mike Turner had lived a simple life. He was a welder by trade, strong hands, callous palms, the kind of man who measured his days by sparks and steel. But when his wife, Sarah, passed away suddenly from a stroke, his world went quiet. The house that had once been full of laughter now echoed with silence. For nearly a year, he carried on like a ghost himself. He worked long hours at the shop, came home to an empty dinner table, and spent his nights sitting in the garage, staring at half-finished projects he no longer had the heart to complete. It was just another Thursday night when things began to change. Mike was pouring himself a late cup of coffee. The clock on the wall read 11:42 p.m. The house creaked the way it always did, a mix of settling wood and old pipes. But when he looked up toward the second floor, his heart froze. In the window of what had been Sarah's bedroom, a figure stood. It was faint at first, just the outline of a woman. But the longer he stared, the clearer it became. Long hair, a soft silhouette, motionless but watching. He blinked. The figure was gone. Mike set his mug down so quickly it spilled across the counter. He raced upstairs, throwing open the door to the room he hadn't entered in months. The bed was neatly made, her dresser untouched, everything exactly how he had left it. But the air felt wrong, cold and heavy, as if someone had just been standing there. Strange noises. Mike tried to shake it off. Grief plays tricks on the mind, he told himself. Maybe he was just overtired. But over the next few nights, things only grew stranger. At 12:07 a.m., he heard footsteps above him. Slow, careful, crossing the ceiling from one end of the room to the other. He grabbed his flashlight and went upstairs. Nothing. The next night, the living room lights were on when he returned from work. He swore he had turned them off that morning. By the end of the week, he found himself double-checking every switch, every lock, and every door. Yet somehow, when darkness fell, something in the house seemed determined to undo him. Clothes on the floor. One Saturday morning, Mike finally forced himself to clean Sarah's room. Dust had collected on the shelves, and her clothes still hung neatly in the closet. But when he returned that evening after a long day welding at the shop, he froze in the doorway. A pile of Sarah's clothes lay scattered across the floor. Not just one or two garments, but an entire armful, as though someone had pulled them down in a rush. Mike's pulse hammered in his ears. He crouched down and touched the fabric, still warm, as if freshly handled. He grabbed a hammer from his toolbox and swept the entire house, room by room. Every closet, every corner. Nothing. He even checked the locks again. They were all secure. It wasn't possible. And yet, the clothes hadn't moved themselves. The woman. That night, he saw her again. Mike had stepped outside for some air, tried to shake the gnawing sense of dread. The moon hung low, casting silver light across the yard. And then he noticed movement by the tree line. A woman. She stood just beyond the fence, partially hidden in shadow. She was watching him. Mike's breath caught his throat. "Sarah," he whispered before shaking his head. No, it wasn't her. This woman's posture was different, taller, sharper, the kind of presence that made his stomach twist. The moment their eyes met, she bolted. Mike dropped his coffee and sprinted across the yard. But by the time he reached the fence, she was gone. The night swallowed her whole. From that point forward, she was everywhere. Sometimes he'd wake up in the middle of the night and see her standing in the yard, staring up at his window. Other times, he'd catch glimpses of her in reflections, behind him in the microwave door or in the corner of the garage mirror. And then there were the voices. Soft at first, a woman's whisper, impossible to make out. He would strain his ears, only for it to vanish. But soon, the whispers became clearer. Mike! Always his name, drawn out like a breath on the back of his neck. One night, the whispers turned into a scream. Mike shot awake to the sound of a woman shrieking in the house. It echoed off the walls, rattling his chest. He grabbed his flashlight and stormed upstairs. Sarah's room was open. Inside, the closet door banged against the wall, opening and closing violently as if caught in a storm. Her clothes whipped back and forth, though the air was still. And, standing in the corner was the woman. She was clearer than ever now, dark hair falling across her face, skin pale, eyes wide and wild. She looked at him with something between fury and sorrow. Mike froze, hammer still clutched in his hand. "What do you want from me?" he shouted. The woman tilted her head, then darted forward with inhuman speed. Mike stumbled back, tripping into the hallway. By the time he scrambled to his feet, the room was empty. Shaken, Mike called the only person he trusted with something like this: his neighbor, old Mrs. Henderson, who had lived on the block for nearly 50 years. When he told her what he'd seen, her expression darkened. "You should have been told when you bought the house," she said carefully. "Before Sarah moved in, that place belonged to a woman named Eliza Grant. Lived alone after her husband left. Folks said she wasn't right in the head. She died in that house, hung herself in the closet, right in the room you're talking about." Mike felt his stomach drop. Mrs. Henderson lowered her voice. "People see her sometimes. A woman in the window, clothes on the floor. She's looking for something or someone." That night, Mike didn't sleep. He sat in the living room with every light on, hammer at his side. At 3:19 a.m., the lights flickered. When they steadied, she was there, in the hallway, just beyond the glow. Eliza. She stepped forward slowly, her bare feet silent against the floorboards. Mike's instinct screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. When she was only a few feet away, she stopped. And then her lips moved. "Not Sarah," she whispered. "Me." Her figure began to fade, dissolving into the air until nothing remained. The house was silent again. In the days that followed, the activity stopped. No more footsteps, no more whispers, no more women in the yard. But Sarah's room stayed closed. Mike couldn't bring himself to enter it again. Sometimes, while welding at the shop, he'd think about the look in Eliza's eyes, the mix of pain, rage, and longing. A woman bound to the place she died, searching for someone to see her, to remember her. And though he never saw her again, Mike often wondered if she was still there, waiting quietly in the shadows of the house. So what do you think? Was Mike haunted by Eliza's restless spirit, or were his grief and loneliness pulling tricks on his mind? If you were in his shoes, would you have stayed in that house, or packed up and left for good? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another chilling tale. Until next time, keep your lights on.